This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is
the one that everybody wants, me.
It's going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my iron. You're going to acknowledge me.
Welcome to the current state of WWE, everybody. It is time to talk to Anthony DeMarco after a week off. That's my own fault. We are back to talk about what's going on in WWE, and over the last 2 weeks, there's a lot of things that we could touch on. Nothing earth-shattering, but things are progressing towards the beloved Crown Jewel event that's taking place on November 5th, which is coming up quickly. After that, we can all get back to just, reality and get back to pay-per-views that seem to matter. Survivor Series that's coming up immediately after that. So before we get any further and go any further, Anthony, how you doing? What's going on?
Not much, man. Like I said, it's weird, or like you said, rather, it's kind of weird that we haven't spoken for 2 weeks. And a lot of the major storylines are kind of in a holding pattern. Like, obviously, the main event scene, you obviously have a bit of progression with Brock and Bobby Lashley, Bray Wyatt really playing the long game here. But I think that's kind of become a hallmark of the Triple H era, that it is a lot of long-term storytelling, and it's a lot of just like waiting and see and having to be patient, because the payoffs here are few and far between, and that's a good thing, right? Like, you don't want immediate payoffs all the time. And I think that for WWE under Triple H's guidance, we're going to have to get used to like long-term storytelling and waiting several weeks, if not months, for conclusions of storylines.
I have no problem with that, and I think but you're right. It's going to have to be a re-education of our minds as fans, that it's not going to be the hot-shotting for the most part. I mean, we're not going to have 6 to 12-month stories for every program, but for the large ones, like, for example, Bray Wyatt, which we'll start with, I think the Bray Wyatt story has been thoroughly thought out. I really do. Now, Bray Wyatt has been on record, and Triple H has said that he has one of the most creative minds, almost to a fault, where he has so many great ideas that he can't just seem to focus on one, and that Triple H needs to kind of guide him in the right direction and focus on one idea. But you can be sure that with Triple H and Bray Wyatt being the lead on this story with his character, I bet you this has been booked out 6 to 12 months. I mean, minimum. I wouldn't be surprised if it's longer than that. I really think this is a deep, multi-layered, crazy storyline that I think we're going to be able to go back in a year and go, wow, remember when it started, when he returned at Extreme Rules? Remember that? And he had the mask, and look where we are now. I think that it's going to be a long story. And with this past week, here's a couple of quotes just for everybody that he said during his promo to really, you could dissect this for weeks, it feels like, with things and the way he chooses words. So here's a couple things he said in his promo. He said, "I confess that I have problems. I know I have problems. I've always had problems. It's not hard for people to see. I needed you. I needed all of you. You removed the spears from my ribs and pulled me up. I'm thankful for that, because now I can see. I know who you are. I know what you want. And I know along the way I will do horrible, horrible things, but I will not be sorry for them. I am just a servant now. I go where the circle takes me." I mean, I don't even know what to make of that. But do you have any reaction to those quotes?
I feel like he's kind of playing off real life and also playing off the past. Like, I like the fact that they're not ignoring completely of what he was in WWE beforehand. And obviously Vince McMahon became notorious for really kind of using or assuming that all the fans had short-term memory. They didn't remember anything beyond a couple months ago. Mm-hmm. And I also like that they're playing off the fact that he did struggle over the last 18 months or so, specifically with the death of Luke Harper, his real-life friend. And he's a mastermind, right, with his words. And it's interesting to see that, we are, 2 weeks in now to Bray Wyatt's return, since he returned at Extreme Rules. And he still hasn't had a conflict with any specific wrestler. We don't even really know what his purpose is yet. Like you said, he's just kind of speaking in backwards riddles in a lot of way. And it just makes you so intrigued each and every week. Like, when are we even going to see him in a ring? When are we going to see him have a face-to-face encounter with anyone else? Like, when are we going to see Bray Wyatt do anything but just talk to us and kind of speak to what we already know in a lot of ways, that he is someone with a lot of problems and that he will, one way or another, eventually start wreaking havoc on the WWE roster. So, I mean, it's absolutely fascinating. Like, I think Bray Wyatt is a guy that just captivates the audience all on his own. I don't know if there's anyone that's been ever so captivating as Bray Wyatt, all on his own. And it's crazy to think, but, like, it's almost as if this guy doesn't necessarily have to get back into a WWE ring for the first few months and people will still be gobbling it up.
I can't even remember the last big return that happened in WWE where that returning individual didn't immediately feud with someone. Like, they came in to interfere after a match was over. I don't even know the last time someone was reintroduced and didn't immediately get into a program. It is fascinating from that perspective, where they're just doing this kind of sideshow with Bray. He's not interacting with anyone yet. They're just doing straight character development. That's it. And I like that, because you're not focusing on who his opponent is right now. You're focusing 100% on what the hell Bray Wyatt's talking about, who the mask is there going to be a Wyatt 6, and potential future opponents. But with the focus 100% on Bray, that is a great place to be if you're trying to really tell fans who and what you are, what your mission is, what your story is. And I love that. And it's not, while his promos are riddles, and they have always been, regardless of what iteration of his character it is, with Firefly Funhouse, the Swamp Cult leader, whatever. How many times have we seen promos with Bray Wyatt backstage with an Edison bulb behind him and Luke Harper and Eric Rowan next to him, and he just speaks in tongues. And at some point I really just tuned out. It felt like the same mumbo jumbo he was speaking every week. But this feels different. While it's riddled in mystery, you also could take it phrase by phrase and do its own deep dive. It's really just amazing. He's got a promo ability where you don't just tune it out. You try to really listen. So I'm fascinated by this. I have a feeling that they're going to have a massive payoff whenever and whoever that could be. But I guess, as we're speculating, do you have any idea? Maybe two-part. Number one, is he going to be alone for long in terms of a group? And do you think his first opponent will be somebody massive? Do you think it'll kind of be just a stepping stone to eventually Roman? Like, what are your thoughts?
I think eventually he'll have to get to Roman just because he is just that big of a megastar. But how long is he going to be alone? Like, I think that they may drag this out to Survivor Series and then maybe start building like his in-ring return for the Royal Rumble. As for who that may be, I really don't know, because as we talked about the last time, whoever is going up against Bray in the immediate future is going to lose and maybe even get squashed in a lot of ways. So you have to find someone who is, I guess, has enough clout to be put on the same level as Bray, but simultaneously is being willing to be sacrificed in this race. But you also don't want it to feel meaningless. Like, when he first returned as The Fiend, I think his first target was Finn Balor, I believe, in the summer of 2019. And I felt like in a lot of ways that kind of halted Finn Balor's momentum, as he had a very good stretch as the Intercontinental Champion in 2019. So I don't really know what it is. Like, off the top of my head, it seems like the Judgment Day would be kind of good as a first foe for him. But at the same time, do you want to completely take the wind out of their sails? And simultaneously, is he for sure a babyface? Like, I think he's a babyface, and I think he'll continue to get babyface reactions just because people love him so much. But the verbiage that he uses a lot of the time is still very heel. So, like, I guess I would have to see, firstly, like, what the concrete direction is. Is he a babyface? Is he a heel? Like, I know last time we talked about him being a heel or a babyface, but are you for sure, like, I guess, convinced that he's going to be a babyface?
I think that no matter what they do, he's going to get cheered by the fans. I mean, I really don't think, especially in the short term, there's nothing they could do to get Bray booed. I mean, he is by default the number one guy on the roster right now in terms of a babyface reaction. I think higher than Drew McIntyre even. And I just don't think there's much they can do. They'd be going upstream for no reason. this is one of those things that why would they want to turn him heel? They've got Roman Reigns at the top that you could argue isn't as hated as maybe Dominic Mysterio, who is, you could argue, is getting the biggest heel heat reaction out of anyone on the roster, which is telling you something. But as far as Bray Wyatt going heel, I mean, good luck. I mean, the guy, I don't care what he does. He could light your grandma's house on fire and you'd be like, well, he's still an intriguing guy. He's fascinating, And by all intents and purposes, we should have booed the Fiend. He was an evil, demonic character that was doing heinous things. Why were we cheering the guy? Because it's cool, it's fascinating, it's new, it's all that. It's going to be nearly impossible to turn him heel. I wouldn't go with that. Now, if long-term they want to, sure. I think right now would be a big mistake to have him start blaming the fans and kind of the typical heel excuses for the actions that they do is they blame the fans. You turned on me. I gave you everything, which is exactly what Ronda said this week. But that works, but not for Bray Wyatt. I don't think that that's a smart move. Well, number one, there's also a lot of merchandise to sell. There is that. And I think it'd be pouring cold water on a fire that you don't need to right now. In 6 to 12 months, if you want to really make an effort to turn him heel and do some things that are just despicable against some of the other top baby faces, that may work. But in the short term, I think it's a really poor decision to swim upstream for what reason? I mean, you have a top heel on SmackDown of Roman Reigns and very few top baby faces on SmackDown to oppose him. So again, yeah, I wouldn't advise them turning him heel, even trying.
Well, and you look at beyond Roman Reigns, and obviously, like, he is a SmackDown exclusive, but you look at other big-time heels right now in the company where you have Seth Rollins, you have Gunther, you have Karrion Kross, you have, and I guess Brock is heel now, if you will, or I guess he's kind of in a tweener situation.
Yeah, we'll get to that, yeah.
Yeah, so, like, in my opinion, I just think that he's a guy that's been kind of wanted to be cheered for a long time here. Like, even when he was the cult leader, like, I remember when he came out at WrestleMania 32 to confront The Rock, and The Rock started complimenting him, and he got a standing ovation. Like, people have loved Bray Wyatt for years, and they've just continued to push forward with him as a heel, because I get it that, like, at the heart of what his character is and what the verbiage is that he usually says, he is more of a heel. But at the same time, like, maybe you just try something different here. And under Triple H, we know that obviously is in the cards. And I guess there's the whole thing is that maybe there's a split personality. A part of him is heel, a part of him is babyface. But I think just overall, you're going to want to see this guy as a babyface. And I guess it also depends who's going to join with him, because if he starts forming a faction, I guess then you're kind of a heel, because factions are typically de facto heels. Not always, but typically. So I don't know. And this is a good thing. The fact that I'm saying I don't know so many times is a good thing. And not to say that you always have to be unpredictable with all that. I'm not trying to say that everything has to be a swerve or whatever. But it's nice to see long-term storytelling and me really not knowing where they're going here.
Yeah, I don't know. That's the thing. Nobody has any idea. This is the most mysterious storyline in a long time. You have Bray who's coming out there essentially as just like Wyndham. I mean, like himself, but under the Bray Wyatt name. He seems more real now than I've ever seen him in any iteration of his character, which is fascinating. So he's shown us just himself, as close to himself as he can. But then there's this mask, and we don't know who's behind the mask. Is it an alter ego? Is it, is he playing, the three faces of Foley, where it's again another version of himself? Or is it Bo Dallas? Is it, we've heard so many different things. What about, I've heard Liv Morgan, how dark she's become. Is she going to be pulled into this potential faction? I don't have any issue with a faction starting. But right now it needs to be focused around Bray, and then maybe slowly bring people in. It doesn't have to be de facto heel. There are some non-heel factions like the Brawling Brutes that really just turned babyface because of the awesome match, 5-star match that he and Gunther had, Sheamus and Gunther. That's really the only reason that they're babyface. But outside of that, I mean, the purpose of factions is to build new stars. And I have no problem at this point in Bray's career, who's a bona fide star, of helping build other people's careers. That's the essential purpose of a faction. So whether it's heel or face. So I'm cool with it. Now, the Wyatt 6, I have no idea where people are pulling this. I don't even know where the name came from. Do you have any idea where, like, the Wyatt 6? It trends on Twitter every now and then. I don't know where it came from. A QR code I missed? I have no clue. Do you have any idea?
I was wondering the same thing, except I'm pretty sure Bray's avatar on Twitter is it's saying the Wyatt 6. So I think it's something that Bray suggested himself. And then you also have the 6 characters that came out when he returned to Extreme Rules. You had the Buzzard, Abby the Witch, the Pig, the Fiend. I know I'm missing some, but like it seems to be a consistent theme from Bray and WWE creative suggesting something to do with 6 alter egos, I guess. I guess himself is one of those 6, and the mask is so I guess it's the Pig, Abby the Witch, the Fiend, the Buzzard, the Rabbit, and then Bray himself. So I would that would be my guess, I think. But then you have the masks too. There's so much stuff to unpack here. And here's the thing, is that I'm not typically someone who likes this ultra entertainment-y stuff. I'm not someone who really likes the hocus pocus a lot. Like, that's why I was never a huge fan of The Undertaker. And I heard Jim Cornette talking about this as well, how this isn't wrestling. And I usually like Jim Cornette a lot. But for whatever reason, Bray is just an outlier in this situation. He's just a complete anomaly where I just cannot get enough of his content. Maybe it's just because he's so good and an exception to the rule, but like the fact that it's so unpredictable, the fact that he's so captivating when he speaks, the fact that there's so many Easter eggs, there's so many layers, it's so long term, and it's not taking up the entire program. It's kind of a less is more thing with Bray. Like, I'm always waiting for him to show up. And then, like, he shows up for 4 minutes, and then, like, it's over, and you're just like, yeah, but what else? Like, and it just keeps you tuning more and more in. So, like, he really has been an anomaly in the way that he's been able to entertain us.
It's really amazing, and I don't know anyone else that would be able to pull this off at this level where it is hocus pocus, and I'm with you. I don't like that garbage. In general, I don't. I think it actually got a little bit too ridiculous, especially with Alexa Bliss, who was just, I think, derailed her career in some ways with how much she didn't wrestle and sat backstage on a playground and did all this stuff that was just, to me, really hurt her for a couple of years. You know, she did a great job, but also she wasn't women's champion ever during that time, and you could go into that. But yeah, I don't know anyone else that could pull this off. Bray Wyatt just has that infamous it. He has that and then some with how well he speaks. The words he selects are very purposeful, and that is something that I don't think a lot of promos have. It's purposeful. It's not filler. Everything he says has a meaning and purpose behind it. And that's what makes it so intriguing, is just the quotes I gave you. You could sit and go, well, you know, he's done this in the past. You'd really have to sit and think. Somebody somewhere probably has decoded it. But I don't have the time. Most people don't have the time to sit and try to figure out this Rubik's Cube, but he drops nuggets every now and then, and it's just enough every show, or he doesn't show up every show. That's great. I love it. That is something that we need more of man, I want more from him. I want more answers. What is going on? That's a good feeling. It keeps you tuning in. It's what they want. But all right, well, I want to shift gears here to Brock and Bobby, a much more straightforward program that's going on here. Now, a couple of weeks ago, Brock Lesnar came back in Philly, I believe it was, and for no reason at all, just started brutalizing Bobby Lashley before his U.S. Championship match with Seth. Seth went on to win the U.S. belt, and then Bobby said he's going to call out Brock. This week on Raw, he calls out Brock. Brock comes out. Bobby gets the best of Brock, ends up smashing his head off the ring post, putting him through an announce table, doing the whole pull-apart thing that I have very mixed feelings on, because I don't like how wrestlers come out. I don't like that. I don't know how that happens, why that happens, what's in it for them. It's ridiculous. But the program itself, it's just straight smash mouth, but I don't understand, like, what's the motivation for Brock? And I've had people actually get annoyed with me that I'm annoyed that they haven't provided a story, but these are two mega stars that we had for years felt like, why hasn't this match happened? It happened, this past year, and it wasn't that great because Brock didn't take Bobby very seriously, which I think really hurt the program. But now we get Triple H doing it, and we still don't have a motivation. What is going on? I don't know, but I mean, I'm interested, but like, I feel like I should be more interested given the guys involved.
Maybe it's just because the last time we saw these two lock horns, it was such a dud that we're kind of have the bar set so low or high, I guess, which way you look at it. It's just like, well, it has to be this good or else we're not going to care about it again, because the bar was so set exceptionally high last time and it disappointed. And I think in a lot of ways, Like, this is I guess kind of the outlier here in the way Triple H has been booking stuff, where this is like an immediate payoff, right? Like, each time that they've come face to face, they've brawled. One time Brock got the better of him, one time Bobby got the better of Brock, and they're going to have a match right away at Crown Jewel. But I think that's kind of like what Brock is, right? Because of his schedule, he inherently is someone who typically offers immediate payoffs. And look, I think we'll care more about it. Like, knowing Triple H, I think that he's going to have something big in store for us at Crown Jewel. And I do think we will finally get the real Brock and Bobby match that we were all waiting for. Because if we think about it, last time they faced off, it was just a stepping stone to get to another version of Brock versus Roman. And what happened? Roman ended up getting involved and costing Brock the match. So I do think this one will be better. But I understand that because how it kind of came out of left field, and because of what we saw, 10 months ago, of it being so damn disappointing, that everyone's kind of reserved about this. But I think that we're finally going to get the match we all have wanted to see for 20 years now. And it's just been taking a bit longer than we thought, because the last time you had Vince McMahon steering the ship and his sights were set fully on Brock versus Roman Reigns.
And the one good thing, too, as much as I'm complaining about the lack of a motive here, is the fact that Brock is involved in something that isn't the championship. That's a good thing. I mean, I don't need Brock at this stage fighting over any championship, really. And I think that having him in a program that's just personal, for whatever reasons, hopefully we'll find out, is good. It's refreshing. I don't know if Brock is the babyface here or the heel. Based on the crowd reaction, it's kind of both are babyface. They don't know who to boo because nobody's really acting like a heel. No one's even got on the mic to talk yet about this. So maybe that'll be more fleshed out, or maybe they're going to leave it to fans and not have a clear-cut face and heel here. But at least the two good things, the silver lining in this is, again, no Brock in a championship. It's personal. That's great. And that's wonderful. And also, is this Brock's swan song? I mean, maybe. Do you think that this is Brock's send-off? Like, do you think this is his final program before he does truly call it a career, presumably at 39, WrestleMania 39?
Well, we're 14 months into his return, since he returned in August of 2021. And I believe, how many matches did he sign up for? I forget. I remember the contract was relatively public, but what else more does this guy have to do? And this is in no way me advocating for this. I really love Brock Lesnar, and he is the only big-time attraction they have right now in the way of, let's say, in the same stratosphere as like an Undertaker or a Rock or an Austin. And he basically inherited what The Undertaker did for WWE in the 2010s of just showing up and having, 4 or 5 matches a year. But, I mean, what else does he have to do? Like, what else can Brock do? Like, he's basically faced everyone worth a bleep in terms of, who could actually respectively step to him. He's faced against Drew. He's faced off against Seth. He's faced off against Roman. He's faced off against AJ Styles. Maybe Sheamus you could make a case for, but, how marquee of a matchup is that with those two? Maybe something with, Gunther, but again, is Gunther at that level yet? He's faced off against Braun Strowman. He's basically done it all in the business, and I just don't know what else you could really have in store for Brock now. He had his main event title run twofold last year at this point. And I really just don't know what else he has left to do. I don't want him to go. I hope they find something for him to do. But I've just been thinking about it, what else is left for Brock Lesnar at this stage in his career?
Well, I can give you a name that sounded unrealistic last year, but it may, if it's going to happen, it's got to be this year, and that's Stone Cold Steve Austin. Now, that sounds insane because, my God, Austin's 50 years old. Brock Lesnar is still, Brock Lesnar could compete, no problem. But that's a match that never happened, and we all know the walkout, the infamous walkout in 02 in Atlanta, Georgia. I remember the King of the Ring quarterly final matchups. It ended up being Bubba Ray Dudley. I don't know how I remember that, substituting in for Austin to face Brock Lesnar in that match. And there is a match there that never happened. Now, WrestleMania 20 was essentially Austin versus Brock, but Goldberg was just there. It felt like that's what it should have been. And, yeah. That's the match everybody wanted. Nobody wanted Goldberg-Brock, but you fast forward now, 20 years since the walkout. It sounds ridiculous. It sounds like it's video game-esque. It doesn't sound like it's a real thing, but honestly, is it that far from reality given Austin faced Kevin Owens last year in a match that we never ever thought we'd see? And that was a legitimate match. Austin, if you give him enough time, could get into ring shape now that we're 6 months away from WrestleMania. That's enough, I think, for at his age, if he committed himself for 6 months to get into shape to feel like he could perform at the level that he expected himself to. And again, I know some people laugh at that, but Brock Austin, you imagine that in Hollywood? Yeah, it doesn't have to be a 5-star classic, but that's the match that we never got. So if I was going to send Brock off in any matchup, I'd say Austin Brock at WrestleMania. It sounds silly, but do you think there's any possibility?
If that's at all in the cards, then I'm here for it. Because, like I just said, who else is left? Like, if it's not an Austin return, like put that in the back burner for a bit, man. Like, on the current roster, who else could face Brock Lesnar at a WrestleMania?
Yeah. No, Seth, that's done. Been there, done that. Like you said, Gunther, sure, but do you really want... I mean, I don't know. Like, Gunther, I want him to hold the IC title for a while. I feel like Gunther should work with younger talent, not necessarily Brock. I don't know anyone else. Braun Breaker, Sheamus, but I feel like that's not WrestleMania. That's more like a B-level pay-per-view matchup. Yeah, there's really nobody. There's nobody outside of Stone Cold Steve Austin that really is. Again, we're talking WrestleMania final match for Brock ever. That to me is it. I mean, that could be the final match for both men. Why not make it a double retirement match? You could. Feasibly. It's not impossible. You talk about drawing tickets and drawing money. My God, Brock Austin, that to me is that headlines WrestleMania any decade, any millennium. So, I mean, that's again. Do I think that's going to happen? No. If we're looking at the real world, it's probably going to be somebody like Gunther, like a Sheamus. Hell, it could be Seth, for God's sakes. It's been, 6-7 years since that. So, I mean, it's possible, but there's also, there's also other people maybe we're not thinking of. Braun Breaker, we keep bringing him up. I don't even know.
Are you at all, I know we're in the minority here of really liking Brock, but have you gotten to a point at all where you're sick of seeing him?
I wouldn't say sick of him. I would say that this current version of Brock that everyone seems to love with the ponytail and the cowboy hat, I never really loved it. I was still in favor of the athletic pants jumpsuit type of Brock that stood there and just beat the hell out of people. I still felt that was his best version. I understand this is more of the personable Brock. It's a different part of his character we haven't got to see. But it also feels like, I don't know, it doesn't feel like real Brock Lesnar sometimes when he's got the ponytail and the cowboy hat. I'm in the minority there too, which is fine. But am I sick of seeing him? I think I'm sick of seeing him in a championship picture. So this is why, while I'm complaining about no motive with Lashley, at least there's something different here where he's not involved in a championship match for the first time since he returned in 2012, the night after whatever, WrestleMania 27, 28. Against John Cena. It feels like this is one of the first times that he's actually not involved in a title match, which is really good. And I hope that continues. So, am I sick of him? No, because he's not there a lot. But I also want to see new opponents and eventually a final send off against a major opponent. So.
And would you say that you're over him being in the championship picture?
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's no need. The reason is not because Brock Lesnar doesn't have the credentials to be there, or of course the resume. My God, he's a once in a generation star. It's more of people believe and don't believe he's ever going to win. Sure, he won the championship in the Fatal 5-Way last year, which was essentially just to get the belt to Roman. There was no real, there was no journey there for Brock. It was just a hold me over to get it to Roman. But no, because also people won't believe that he can win, and nor do I want him to. Just like if The Rock came back, I don't want him to win. There's no need for it. It's to me, that sends a message to fans that they're kind of retrograding, going back to the old stars. They don't trust their new stars. I don't think that sends the right message to fans. And as much of a fan as I am of Brock and Rock, neither of them should hold any championship at this point in their career.
It's just crazy. I think Brock Lesnar is one of these things that people will not know what they had until it's gone. He is the last wrestler to transcend the wrestling business.
Yeah, and the thing is, he's not going out in embarrassment. If he goes out this year, it's not like we're looking at him going, man, in the ring, he's not doing so good, like Undertaker. Now, I have the utmost respect for Taker, as everyone does, but you could see that it was beyond time for him to go. I mean, it just was, and it was getting really bad and almost just dangerous. I didn't want to see him compete anymore because as cool as it was, and I knew his days were limited, I was actually concerned for the person, Mark Calloway. Like, I thought he was going to kill himself, injure himself or his opponents. It got to that point, which was really uncomfortable. But with Brock, I don't think Brock Lesnar is at the point where people are looking at him going, I've heard nobody say that, man, he doesn't have it in the ring anymore. Like, Brock Lesnar that's not a problem for Brock. And Brock doesn't need the money at this point. But, I don't think Brock could do what he wants. I mean, do I think that he could continue for another 5 years? Probably. I mean, Brock Lesnar's inhuman, but I don't think he's embarrassing himself in the ring. And if he wants to walk out on top, there's no better way to do it than at WrestleMania and just call it a career.
Yeah, I think it's so sad though, because I still think he's a great worker. I know people like to say that, try to imply that he's not, but he really is still a fantastic worker. And if it is his last match or his last program, whatever it is going into this WrestleMania, it's just going to suck, because I don't think we're ever going to see another wrestler transcend the wrestling business like we saw with Brock or Rock or Austin. Like, he really does kind of feel like the last massive star that they have.
And you know what he also is great at, and we can close, this is my final statement, then I'll toss it to you, is that, Brock Lesnar, I think, doesn't get enough credit for the way he sells, how great he sells. Yeah. It's not like a Bray Wyatt, which again, no, I'm not crapping on Bray, but there's been characters in the past like The Fiend that have just no sold, and that's kind of their gimmick.
Actually, 1 second.
Yeah.
What if he faces against Bray Wyatt?
I love it. I mean, there you go. There's
an
an opponent.
We never got.
Yeah. The match that was teased. I think it was teased at like Roadblock or something.
Yeah.
And they went face to face, and Bray. I remember that. Yeah. There you go. Brock and Bray Wyatt. Hell yeah. No, you don't need a championship involved there. So there's a great opponent for both men. If it's not Austin, Bray's certainly a great secondary. Or maybe Brock and Edge. That's kind of a weird combo. But yeah, no, I think that right now that's an excellent WrestleMania matchup, and I don't think that Brock Lesnar, again, doesn't get enough credit for how well he sells for his opponents. You actually, as big of a man as he is, you don't feel like he's being selfish in the match or going into business for himself. You feel like you can feel the anguish and the pain and the struggle with Brock. He doesn't just squash you. He actually sells the hell out of his opponents, and I think he doesn't get credit for that. So.
Yeah, that would be. If he goes out in a losing effort to Bray Wyatt, I think that's something that I'd be extremely happy with, unless it's Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Right. Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it's Stone Cold number one, but Bray Wyatt, yeah, and maybe there's motivation there. I think Bray could pull something up, given what happened how many years ago? It feels like 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
Whatever it was, but cool. Any final thoughts?
No, I guess just that. I'm really liking the fact that it's like a slow burn here. I'm enjoying that and look, there still are things that I don't like obviously Roman holding both championships hostage. Don't like that, but I like the change of pace here as opposed to just the constant payoffs that we were used to beforehand.
Exactly. And Bray is an awesome distraction from the very problem that you brought up and that we've brought up for the last year of Roman just hibernating with those championships and holding them hostage. So Bray Wyatt's an excellent distraction for fans because they have now something to really look forward to, even if it's not the belts coming off of Roman. So, yeah, very good. And, guys, don't forget, you guys can check out the retro show from Anthony DeMarco every single Friday. This past week, you covered Shane McMahon's return in 2016, I believe, in Boston, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that was a hell of a return. Obviously, everyone knows that I love Shane McMahon. And, it's too bad that he's kind of like a non-factor creatively or behind the scenes anymore. But I found it crazy that a lot of what he said turned out to just completely be fake news. I never lost my place in line. Yeah, you did. Of course you did. And the fact that they never had a Triple H Shane McMahon program. That's something to me that was the most low-hanging fruit you could possibly think of. And they just never got to it. But all in all, that night when he returned in February 2016 was just absolutely amazing. The fans gobbled it up, and it was really something to see.
It was. I'll never forget that moment. And, Shane has underwent criticism here and there over the last, many years. He had been there since 2016 over the last 6 years. Of course, over the last year or two, he hasn't really been there, but with his matches and the opponents that they chose for him at WrestleMania, AJ Styles being one of them, some of the, he gets criticism for the way he wrestles, but I think that he has earned the respect of fans. I mean, and that moment in 2016 was that was just a glass-shattering moment that, I won't forget either. So check that out, guys. You can check that out, and a brand new episode coming this Friday as well. And it was fun to reconnect here, and I'm sure we'll have more as we get into next week, which is not Crown Jewel week. It'll be the week before, but looking forward to it.
Yeah, man. Me too.
Take care.
To you soon.
Yep. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.